So how was it like? Means after getting at the end of your internships at Intel, so you were down, like morally down. Then after you're getting a place at National Instruments, that we considered a pioneer in electronics department. So how was what were your preparations for that? Basically, you did your backup and you did your homework for that. So what was it like, and what are the hiring process? So the person who's watching this, how he or she can prepare for National Instruments?
Okay. So in National Instruments, if you want to get into that as a fresher, the paths start with platform support engineer, sales development engineer, or software engineer. That is in R&D, and the first two that I've talked about, that is in the sales office. So I had interviewed for the position of platform support engineer, and a fun story, I had actually been so paralyzed with anxiety during that Intel the conversion not happening that phase, and also with my semesters, I was only preparing for my semesters, and I was so tired that I actually hadn't prepared at all for NI. I gave all of those rounds of interview only based on the knowledge that I had retained from college and from my internship experience. Based on that, I had appeared for all of those very challenging technical interviews. Like there were, I think, a total of 7 interviews that I appeared for in total, 6 to 7. And out of that, I think minus 1, T-1, that was the number of interviews that was technical. So I appeared for all of them, but what I am going to help you with is the areas that they focus on during these interviews. At least that is my personal experience. The interview was heavily focused on signals and systems, sampling and all of those, reconstructing your signals, that sort of stuff, and dived into the deep, dived pretty deep into those concepts, DSP, embedded systems like the communication protocols, serial, and all of that. And then there was a lot of discussion around op-amps, and a bit of analog electronics, and some C concept, some coding concept. So that is what was mostly required. As a platform support engineer in National Instruments, what was important is I had to carry that domain knowledge with me of electronics. And luckily I had studied during my years in college. That is why I was able to go through those rounds of interview without preparation. Yeah, I mean, in fact, it had happened in such a way that I had a call while I was in my Kolkata home. I had a call, and the first round went pretty good. I gave all the answers from memory. After that, the second round was in Bangalore. I had already gone back to Intel again to finish the sort of internship, and at that point they had asked me to come over to their office and give their interviews, and I had a miscommunication. The person who had called me, she was from Milan, I think, Italy, and she had told me that we liked you, we are going to have a business round with you. I was like, okay, great, this is over. I don't have to prepare anymore. But what happened is, when I went there, they told me that they are going to take 2 technical rounds of interview, and the sky broke on my head. Like, what are you talking about?
Out of syllabus.
Out of syllabus. I took some time. I don't know how I looked at that point, but I took some time to gather myself, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Then we did it. I had 2 rounds of interview on that same day, and I did it. Somehow I really felt that's why that I earned my way into that company. I earned it. So yeah, I would say that, yeah, these are the areas to focus on: signals and systems, DSP, embedded systems, op-amps, like some of analog basics, very basics, not Schmidt trigger or anything like that, but don't put me on that. If you get asked on Schmidt trigger, I'm not at fault. And some C concepts, and what they expect you to do is they expect you to think on your feet. That is exactly what they had done with me. They expected me to think on my feet, and I was able to do that well. and they will at times ask you slightly tricky questions, and that is where they are expecting you to basically talk about the approach that you're going to, the way in which you're approaching that particular problem. That is what they want to analyze, and not what answer that you're landing upon. Whether you land upon the wrong or right answer, that is of slightly lesser importance when they are asking you a slightly tricky question. Or even they could ask you an open-ended question, and they are just doing that to see if you get nervous, if you get cold feet, if you escape from that particular question, or if you put something, try to think in some way. So that is one important takeaway, that approach any given problem. And body language, curiosity, growth mindset, once again reiterating that. I would like to add another interesting question that I had. I was asked this question in my 4th or 5th round. Okay, this was my 4th or 5th round, I think, and this was with my manager's manager. So he had asked me this brilliant question that, say you have 1,000 bulbs in series, and one bulb goes off, so for that the entire thing blows off. So how, as an engineer, are you going to solve this? Are you going to put the positive and negative terminals across each bulb 1,000 times and find answer to that, or what are you going to do? What is your approach? I thought for a while because once again that was supposed to be another business round.
Quote unquote.
Yeah, that was supposed to be another business round, and I got that logical sort of question. So I approached that in a way that I told them that I think I would go about it in the binary search sort of way. I would probably fold that wire in two and I would get that midpoint, and then across the midpoint I would put in the positive and negative terminals, and I would then get to see in which part does the faulty bulb lie in, and then I would accordingly keep making more halves, just like binary search works. I did this mental calculation that 2 to the power 10 is 1024, and I am given 1,000, so anything less than 1024 I would need 10 iterations in worst case to find that faulty bulb. And by doing that, basically you reduce your work that is supposed to have been done 1,000 times, you reduce it to 10 times. So how amazing is that? And I had thought that on spot, and that was brilliant. So I mean, where did it come from? I don't know, but
there was a time where the basics came in place.
Exactly. So you need to be able to think on your feet.
Exactly. And just few points that I would take away from here, that all the students who are watching, they're thinking like, if अगर DSP embedded system से पढ़ लिया तो time पे, तो शायद या अरे पढ़ना चाहिए था, kind of this thing. But yes, one more thing that all the aspirants who are working towards national instruments, they would be now prepared. Whenever business call comes, they know it's a technical round. So
yeah.
So thank you so much for letting them know.
Yeah, but that is for platform support engineering, and there are other roles like sales development engineering where people had I think 1 or 2 rounds. So yeah, there are various ways in which you can contribute to it. Go for it, prepare, and by DSP and embedded systems, please do not get scared, because only very basic, like from DSP, I think from the first chapter I was asked questions, and from embedded systems I was only asked about those communication, serial communication, do you know anything about it, that sort of stuff. So very basic stuff, focus on the basics.
Okay, so again, National Instruments, you entered, you joined. So what was the work culture over there? And obviously after Intel, this is your another co-company. So how was it different in terms of work culture, the workload upon you as a fresher? So what was it like?
Okay, so when I joined National Instruments, I had a revelation.
Okay.
The revelation was that I know nothing. Even after my experience at Intel, I realized when I came to National Instruments, I was like, all of these people around me, they are geniuses. I am an imposter. What am I doing here? That is what I felt like when I had joined National Instruments. Like, you needed such a heavy domain knowledge to be there. So yeah, I mean, like I said, like I debunked myth before, that you should not have this mindset that once you get a job, life is sorted, no more books, no more studies. That is just the beginning. This is pre-beginning college. That is the beginning. Your work, when your real work starts, real learning starts on the job. So yeah, I nonetheless, through consistency, I eventually got used to the tricks of the trade, how I can understand problems, evaluate them, troubleshoot them. Eventually, I got to that, and I fell in love with that totally. I fell in love with signals and systems, analyzing them, working with customers, solving their problems. I thoroughly loved it. I fell in love with that, but at the same time, it was a very demanding job, I think. Handling service requests continuously day in day out is sort of challenging, I think. You need to have good time management and organizational skills. For that, you need to be a pretty organized person, and at that point in my life, when I had just started out in the real world, landed my first job, it was like my time for freedom. And that is where I misinterpreted freedom for lack of discipline. So this is one of the important lines that I found in the book You Can Win from 𝗘ощ, that lack of discipline does not equal freedom. So you got to remember that. Be organized, have your time management skills. You are a creature of habit. Make sure you adhere to your habits. So yeah, eventually I was sort of falling in place with my life in NI after the down phase that I had towards the end of Intel. But COVID showed up with a huge smile on its face. So COVID showed up, and life once again was struck out of balance. There, I remember that time had like a lot of depression. There was a lot of anxiety, isolation, feeling lonely in that initial work from home phase, and that impacted my productivity very much, very much. Like I remember there were months, I think one entire month, I did not get up from bed at all. As in, I started working right after getting up. I would just quickly get down to go to the washroom or something, and I would eat on the bed, I would sleep on the bed, again get up on the bed and keep working. I had not walked at all in that entire first month. So that had like set me off into depression and anxiety, and I was not even getting enough sunlight at that point because of the lockdowns and all. So yeah, I mean, that impacted my productivity, my mental health, and in general also the year 2020 was very tough for me. I had a lot of personal setbacks in that year, and it was very hard for me to keep showing up at work every day, like to bounce back every day. Like the quote from 𝗪𝘳 that I gave some time ago, that if it's not working for you, don't do it harder. So but I was doing it harder. I was like, what is wrong with me? I need to do this. And I kept pushing, and I was burning myself out every day. So that was happening, and then ultimately, to top that off, towards the end of the year 2020, the dreaded company-wide decision came in for laying off tons of people.
The sad part over here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have faced one layoff, right? And obviously in this time of pandemic, someone or the other will face eventually. So how he or she, whenever he faces, God forbid that he faces it, but if he or she faces it, so what should be his mindset? Because maximum people, the exact instinct is that they go into state of depression, or like they feel that they are not worth for the industry or something or the other. But what should be the mentality after that, or during that phase, if I say?
Yeah, brilliant question once again. So, when I had first heard that I was going to be laid off, along with like 65% people of my team, the first reaction was, it might come as a surprise, but it was relief. I was so burned out, it was relief. But the second immediate action that followed that was panic. Like, what am I going to do now? So, and unfortunately for me, it's like, when all bad things happen at the same time, that is what had happened to me. The losing the job was only the first domino that had fallen and triggered off the domino effect. And all the other areas of my life had somehow got affected. And I was at my lowest at that point, not just because of the layoff, but because of several other things that were happening in my life at that point of time. And it was truly testing. So I really was like a wreck at that point. But what I did is I disengaged from everything. I stepped back. I gave myself the time to grieve, to heal, to rejuvenate from that. It was not a day. It was not in a week or in 2 weeks that happened. It happened over, I think, a period of 3 months that I recovered from that shock, as well as the other sort of things that were happening in my life. Like, total wreck. Whatever else was happening in my life, all other spheres were affected: friendship, relationship, at home environment, work, which I did not have. Everything had got affected, and my life had turned literally upside down. I sort of started having an identity crisis, that I was this person so long, and now I don't have any of these. Who am I now? What am I going to do now? But at that point, I had no other option but to sit with my feelings and actually let them pass through me. And eventually, it did not happen in one day. Like I mentioned, the getting back up phase. I rested, I applied for jobs in a day, 200 or so, and then I cooled off. There was so much anxiety. I was paralyzed with anxiety that I took off from job application. From only the process of job application, I took rest for 3 to 4 days or a week, and then again I applied in one day I applied for 200 or 300 jobs. Again I took some rest. Again I applied. In this way, consistently, even though I was getting burned out, I kept bouncing back. Maybe not on the same day, maybe not on the next day, but after 3-4 days or a week, I bounced back again. So consistency helps, definitely. And I started doing things that gave me love. I started pondering life, like what is really the meaning of life. I don't have my job, so I cannot expect, being in the private industry, that I'll always have my job. I cannot have such high expectations from the corporate industry. So I have to look out for my own self, and what gives me meaning, what brings me to life. I focused on those particular activities. Like, I love dogs, as you would have seen, and what I did at that point is, when these when these dogs who came in just a while back, when they were just born, I thought of, instead of just consuming from the world continuously, I thought of giving back. So I raised these 4 pups at my home, and that brought me a lot of happiness. I stayed up nights like a mother. At the slightest squeak, I would get up and I would tend to their needs. and giving back in that way, that was so beautiful. I was so happy by giving like seeing these pups grow to life. It gives me the utmost happiness, seeing beautiful living things vibrantly grow. So that is one thing that I focused myself on at that time. The other things were, I found some other ways to heal, basically, because there was a lot of things that were going on in my head, and I had to know, I needed tools to tame those demons in my mind, right? And I I used to sleep at night. I remember every night I used to sleep putting in my ears positive affirmations, law of attraction stuff, manifestation stuff. I used to sleep putting in that. I was so wrecked. Those were my support systems at that time. And once again, there were like 2 or 3 very kind souls who were kind to me, to stay by my side at that point. And I'm forever grateful to them for doing that. And by using these support systems and the interest that I had started growing or discovering to heal myself, like I had invested myself in this healing therapy, which is called 𝗬𝗮. I had invested myself in that, and I was reaping benefits of it. So I kept continuing it on myself and family. It took away my stress. It helped me. It was a good release for my emotions, as well as physical pains. So I joined gym. So that sort of stuff really helped me, get back on life, find the meaning of my life when everything falls out of sorts. So everything happens in time. You don't need to rush this process. It happens very slowly. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, there is only so long that you will stay stuck on the bed feeling low. You will one day get up and take action. You will want to change things around. And that is what I have done slowly. And of course, like there were so much rejection letters that I have faced, like that had piled for me, rejection letters. And I was like, what's the point in applying if I'm going to only keep on getting these rejection letters? So that is the reason why I cooled off, basically, after applying for jobs. In one day, I used to say that, okay, are you done sending the rejection mails now? Okay, now I I waited for like 3 to 4 days or a week for that. I gave them the time that, okay, send all your rejections, okay, let them come. And then I again bounced back and I applied again. So in that way, I kept being consistent, and eventually I found my job, the next one. But yeah, I mean, the entire experience, to sum it up, was very, very humbling. Whatever I had lost in touch with in my life while I was earning, I got grounded in that point. I understood what mattered and what did not. I grew up a lot. So if somebody were to, find a maxima on my growth trajectory, they would see that at this phase of my life, which was the worst, that is where I had grown so much. Like my learning and growth shot through the roofs, literally. And that is the time when I had hit rock bottom. So, you have to make it a point that when you hit rock bottom, you learn from that and you make changes so that you can overcome that. And if I could I did it, I'm sure everybody can do it. So yeah, it was humbling, had a lot of growth, loved this phase, and I think it was crucial that all of this happened for me.
Exactly, and I think this phase also made you as a person, right? And you can turn back to it and like you can laugh at one day with your loved ones, as you said. Like, what was I doing back then? I was just crying over that tiny little thing. And I think that you mentioned about the 2 souls. I think here that thing comes that you need at least one person in your life who you can turn towards to, right? It can be your parents. For your case, it was the 2 souls and your 4 dogs, right? So yeah, that is it. It's not necessary that it should be a person or human. It can be an animal. You just have to let it out, and it's okay to moan, I think. There's no
You have to give yourself the permission to heal, to grieve, to rest.
exactly. And mourning is, I think, not bad. It's a like taboo. Like why are and specifically in, I think, boys and men. Like, you are a man. How are you crying? Like, over this teeny bit of shit. So that is the thing, that it's okay to mourn. I think it's.
I think what is important is your IQ is okay. I mean, you definitely need to be intelligent to survive on this planet, but you definitely need a good amount of emotional intelligence. That quotient has to be high so that you can thrive in your relationships and as a person, so that you can grow and get the most out of life.
Exactly. And as you mentioned, emotional EQ, if I say EQ, I think that is also a factor. Like, I was talking to HR the previous day. She mentioned that also a criteria that they look after having the freshers on board, or any person on board. They look at the EQ, because that EQ will tell that if you are able to gel with your colleagues
Exactly.
or the teammates, right? And if you're like, obviously you have to be an emotional person at some point of your time. You can't be a robot. So
Exactly.
that is the thing.
Yeah, that sets you apart as a human.
Exactly. Because obviously a person or a human will try to connect to a human. A human will not try to connect to a robot. Again, a drastic shift at your career path. That is, now you are in UiPath, and you're finally transitioned from core to IT, if I'm not wrong. And can you just tell that how has been the transition phase for you, and do you actually miss core now?
Okay. Great question. I have a lot of points out here, I think. So, fun story. I'll start with the fun story because we have been talking about a lot of reading stuff. Fun story is that I was so much paralyzed by anxiety in those initial months after layoff. In January, to be precise, I was so paralyzed that I had actually applied for this particular role of UiPath on LinkedIn, and then they had got back to me. But in that particular week, somehow I had been getting, I think, a lot of rejections, and I was absolutely very low. And they had sent me a mail to appear for an online test. I was scared to my wits, so I just sort of let that go. I was like, okay, I am not going to sit for it right now. I'll just pretend.
All is best. All is best.
I just pretended that this mail never came to me. I was so scared at that point, so paralyzed.
Because you were sending emails to get rejected, and now suddenly an email comes that you have been accepted.
Yeah, and I rejected myself from that. Then what happened is, in the month of March, that was still at the back of my mind. I should not have done that. What I did is, I went to that mail. I saw that, let's see if that link is still active for the test. And I sat for that test. I gave it. And it was good. And after that, I wrote out an apology letter I sent out an apology email to the HR saying, explaining my 2-month delay. And if the position is still open, I would love to interview for it. I did that, and coincidentally, it was my lucky day, I think, that evening when I decided to sit for that test, and finally, it took action. I got a reply back from them within 2 days, and interviews were scheduled. And within April midweek, I had the job. So that was the fun story, and it came to me in a way that was hilarious. I was pushing it away.
Good things come to you when you least expect it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And talking about UiPath, I love it. I thoroughly love it. I love the products that I'm working on. I love the people in my team. They are so kind, so compassionate. They are amazing folks. And the benefits that UiPath offers are amazing. As an employee, I feel like I'm on cloud9. So basically, they have unlimited paid time off. Then they reimburse all your gym memberships or fees. They reimburse all the books and periodicals that you buy or purchase. They have several other, they give you access to all these learning platforms. They give you access to Headspace and other mental health sort of apps. So, fitness apps. They take care of you overall, like complete holistic sort of take care is like they take care of you in that way. And they, during the COVID time, especially when I, like recently I had got diagnosed with that in April end, and they had helped me tremendously. Like every day, my manager and there was a COVID buddy assigned to me, who checked up on me every day, asking how I felt every day, and they were so kind. It was such a kind gesture of the company to give $500 to every Indian employee, only to cope with that COVID time. And they are even right now arranging for vaccination for all the employees. I mean, it's brilliant what they are doing. And the unlimited time, paid time off is like, that helped me so much. I did not have to worry at that time. They tell me, if you feel sick at all, if you even get a headache, you take that day off. That is how they say. So the company benefits wise, the people wise, it's brilliant. The work, I'm still onboarding. It got delayed because of the COVID happening, but I'm in love with the products. It's RPA, it's robotic process automation. That is the industry, to be precise. That is so. In order to help you understand what RPA is, I'm going to quote our CEO Daniel Dyne's vision. So he says that Bill Gates used to talk at Microsoft about a computer in every home. I want a robot for every person. So that is what RPA is. You have an robot always there to assist you, and that is a technology with which I could relate on a personal level. Like, yes, I'm all for it. I need a robot for myself. I mean, working with signals and systems and debugging applications of customers on a day-to-day basis at NI was cool. Definitely, it was cool. But this is something, like I mentioned, I could relate with it on a personal level. So I'm all for it. I definitely want to be out here right now. So I do miss code. To answer your question, I do miss code. Technology is literally magic, and I don't distinguish one technology from another. I am married to the entire spectrum of technology for life.
Great, yeah. I think the thing that you mentioned about that gym reimbursement, I think the gym lovers are going to love it. I think the UiPath will be their dream company now, and also I think the psychology behind what I think that many would be taking it wrong way. And why is the company giving like unlimited paid leaves? So I think a person can take paid leaves at a certain, as we discussed last time, that he or she can take paid leaves at a certain amount of time. Then he or she will have the guilt, like, what am I doing? And eventually that he or she will know that company is giving me so much, I have to pay it back. It's my responsibility. So I think that psychology and that, as you said, like $500 for just coping up with COVID. I think that's a great gesture, because many are being laid off just because they are not able to compensate that paying per salary. So I think in that part it was great of UiPath to do so.
Yeah.
Once again, coming to UiPath, I think this question will pop up a lot in the comments. So before they put it out, I am telling you. So what will be the hiring process of UiPath and for what role? And also, what was your CV in your core company and versus your CV for an IT company? And also you applied to so many like 200 companies in a day, or 200 job profiles in a day. So I think you will have a very good answer for what is the versus of this.
Yeah, very good. So I'll take one question at a time. The hiring criteria at UiPath is the one that I'm going to address right now. So see, by the time I had applied for UiPath, I was an experienced professional, right? So I'm not sure how the thing would be for freshers, but I'm going to tell you my experience, and maybe you can learn something out of that. For me, it was mostly on C. The questions that I was asked from, that was mostly C. Not data structures so much, but yeah, linked lists were asked. That was very interesting. Memory sort of stuff. Then I admitted upfront that I did not have networking as a subject back in college, so I would not be able to answer to that. But however, from my experience at Intel and I had got experience on Linux OS a lot. So that was a plus for me, because in IT or software companies, this is required: networking and OS concepts and strong coding skills. So that is opposed to your domain knowledge that is required in core. So that is the difference between core and IT, like
Right.
Your areas of focus. So for me, like I was mentioning, C, Linux OS, and my prior experience as a technical support engineer or a platform support engineer, how I had handled service requests. Then we had to write knowledge base articles. Okay, so my troubleshooting skills were analyzed, and how I would approach any problem, how I could think on my feet, and also how I spoke like as a person, how my public facing skills were, if I might say. So these are the criteria on which I was interviewed at UiPath. So you just need to have that troubleshooting skills thing mostly, like from the technical support perspective that I'm mentioning. I am specifically mentioning this because I mentioned beforehand that they would hire. I was hired as an experienced professional because of my experience as a technical support engineer. And by the way, UiPath is currently hiring, so if there is somebody who wants to apply, you can look out. They are hiring like crazy. So that was the criteria, and how you can set apart your CV for core versus IT is, like I mentioned. Um, in core, you need to lay stress on your CV, on your domain knowledge, how you have worked, or what is your experience in terms of your domain knowledge, where have you put them to use. That is through projects. You're going to show projects where you have worked strongly on electronics or whatever. And for IT, they would need to see your coding skills. So if you have worked on any website, or like creating any website, or if you have developed any game, or if you have created any one of these things through coding, that would be a plus. Those sort of projects would be a plus, as well as your concepts in networking, some basic understanding in networks, the OSI layer models, and TCP/IP models, and your OS concepts. Definitely some OS concepts. Like if you have mentioned Linux, they will ask you about the kernel probably, because that is something that sets it apart from Windows. So this is how it differs. So the main idea that you have to keep is you need to lay stress on your CV on those skills that are your strong suit, as well as that overlaps with the employer's requirement. That is a must. And I think there are courses available on LinkedIn Learning or Udemy and all, how you can create a CV to stay ahead of the game, basically. Like the how we were talking about ATS, right?
ATS.
Tracking system. How you can get yourself noticed through your CV, get those help, or talk to people.
Exactly. And I think I will be leaving your LinkedIn link in the caption, so that whoever needs any guidance or anything, they can directly approach to you and you can guide them forward.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to.
Okay, so we'll be coming to the last question of this podcast. I don't want this podcast to end, but still coming to the last question. So obviously you're now officially a professional, but still a long journey to go, right? And so what will be your next 5 years or 10 years down the line plan? Anything that could be shared?
Definitely. So Even, yeah, I totally resonate with that. I do not want this podcast to end. I mean, this has been going so smoothly, so well. I am absolutely loving our conversations that we are having. They are so real and intense, and so much to learn from these. I think even while I was preparing for these, I have learned so much. Looking back at my life, I have been able to look at the positive things. I have been able to find the positive, extract the positive stuff out of everything, and I'm proud of myself for that. Because you need to be in a good state of mind in order to do that. So yeah, my goals or plans in the coming years is okay. First of all, I am a big fan of creative living, and I think I'll show this book once again that we were just talking about at the start of this podcast. It is this Big Magic. It's by 𝗬𝘗𝗮𝗚. Okay, it's blurry.
I will be leaving the picture.
Yeah. So this has helped me a lot to understand creative living. That is, there is joy in life only if you are into creating things. If you are continuously engaged in building stuff, contributing to the growth of this planet, or growth of societies, or even your personal growth, helping out friends and family in any possible way, that is going to give you happiness. And staying in creativity is something that is one of my goals.
So I have become a very goal-oriented person, like I mentioned to you. When I was, when I had graduated into the real life, I literally knew nothing. Like, where should I start from? I was a wreck. I was indisciplined. I had lost all my discipline. I mean, I used to stay in discipline before that because I was in school or college, and I was the system was designed in such a way that I will be disciplined to it. But when you're on your own, you lose track of that. You don't know how to do stuff. So that is where I lost track of everything. But over the last few years, when I say that I grew the most in the worst times, that is when I sort of got my life back on tracks, and I decided that I'm going to live my life by staying goal oriented. So I currently have like 5 goals, and everything that I do in a day, okay, starting from exercising to speaking to people, connecting with friends, to working on my personal hobbies or career projects or work, everything falls into one of these 5 buckets. Everything falls into that. Everything that I do, or even 𝗬ощa that I mentioned, that is also into my mental health. So that also falls into it. So have goals. Like one of my goals is to be, to keep investing, to grow my network. That is through networks and by investing well. I am giving that away. And another one is to be sincere in my relationships and friendships, so that I can lose that social anxiety. I think I have already overcome a lot of that just by changing my mindset. But that is going to be a key area, one of my goals that I'm going to focus, because I cannot live without people, let's face it. And I have decided that these goals that I have set, and like I mentioned, that I'm actually whatever I do in a day, all of those falls in those buckets. I have decided that since we are creatures of habit, I'm going to forge habits right now, and I'm going to hold on to them for the rest of my life. Because only by living life in a consistent and in a disciplined way, I know that I'll be able to reach the top, or not even top. I'll be able to live my life to the fullest. That is all I want. I want to stay happy. I want to live a fulfilled life.
Beautiful. And any last few tips or any few things that you want to share to your juniors or your colleagues, anyone through this podcast you want to say?
Okay, so I think I've given a lot of tips. There were a lot of important takeaways that I have given to you. What I will tell you is, when you're at your lowest or anything, you do not stop growing. Or even when you're not at your lowest, you do not stop growing. Don't stay stuck in one place or do not get comfortable. Always challenge yourself with new projects. Have that vision, have that imagination. Don't lose sight of goals or what you wanted to be when you were young. Don't lose sight of your dreams. You just have one life. Go at it. It's temporary. You need to go at it and live to your fullest. And you do that by taking actions, not just by thinking about them. You do that by taking actions, and how you do them is through 1-degree turns. Take one step at a time.
And you'll reach there in no time.
You just start doing it and you'll reach there. Like you, Pratim, you have started this podcast and I am so proud of you for doing that. And many people are probably right now thinking that, oh, I want to start a podcast someday, that sort of stuff. But you have already started it. You are already living the life that you want. And you are doing creative living. You are producing your own, podcast sessions, and that is brilliant. I am taking notes from you right now as a person. I would suggest all of you to do that. If there is something that you want to do, go out and get it. Nobody is going to get it for you. You alone are responsible for what you want and what you can do with your life, and take risks. This is the time to take risks when you are young. Take risks because they are going to give you higher rewards. That's it.
I think this again. I'm repeating it again. I don't want this to end, but still we have to end it sometime. Thank you so much for being a part of Inside Buddha, and I think the knowledge that everything experience you have shared, I think to encompass it in one video or in one podcast, I think it's too much. So I think we'll be meeting again and discussing on different topics. So yes, it's a very emotional part leaving this podcast. But again, thank you so much for being there.
Yeah, I'm literally tearing up right now because this is emotional for me. This was my first time, and this went pretty well. This was so intense, so good. I loved it. Thank you, Pratim, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much, and thank you for doing this. Please keep on doing this.
Thank you so much. So that was Ozoswita 𝗚. She shared her experience as a core and how she shifted from core to an IT, and what all were the prospects, what all were the technicalities, what all were the opportunities that she faced, and all the setbacks. There's a very special quote that you can't be successful by listening to success stories, but you can be successful listening to failure stories. So thank you for being there, and meet you at the next podcast.